and that helps save fuel, chemicals, fertilizer, and money, but also helps farming to adjust to rapidly changing climate and weather conditions. It gives the tool set to adapt and build resilience in farming. And finally, we have a technical and management consulting company that helps government and corporate clients to decarbonize successfully and also to manage and assess climate risks and environmental risks. So you'll hear about these solutions directly from the companies. So thank you for joining us, and I'm happy to turn over to my colleague Tara Gielig, our Director of Sustainability and Impact.
So first, Ian, Rob, Natalia, thank you so much for making this long trip here. Part of what we're excited to do today is to showcase the cross-cutting nature of these solutions, whether those are supporting the broader enabling environment or providing direct solutions to combat the impacts from climate change. So with that, I'll start kicking it off with Source. And just a bit of background, Rob Bartrup is the Chief Revenue Officer at Source Global. He's been responsible for the global expansion of Source's technology, including its retail product launch, the establishment of its global distribution network, and a project pipeline that's based on the water purchase agreement model, providing clean drinking, renewable solutions to communities, governments, and corporations in more than 45 countries. Prior to Source, Rob spent 9 years in strategy, business development, and regional management roles at First Solar, where he led the company's expansion into Asia-Pacific region and was also responsible for the origination, development, and delivery of a large portfolio of solar PV projects across Asia-Pacific. And previous to that was formerly an analyst at Lehman Brothers. And so, Rob, would you mind just kicking us off here, sharing a little bit more about Source, its solution, and how the product helps to enable and support resilience in the communities in which you work?
Thank you. Thanks, Tara, and very nice to be here today. At Source, we are focused on what we consider the world's water problems, and in particular drinking water. I think it's helpful to look at what are the problems. People talk about the world water crisis and water scarcity. Ultimately, we see that comes down a couple of really important numbers. There's 2 billion people globally that don't have drinking water where they live, where it's safe drinking water where they live. There's 200 million hours every day spent by women and girls walking for water. And there are 500 billion single-use plastic bottles used every year for drinking water for people. And the vast majority of that is in developing countries. So when we look at water problems, we're not talking about just water problems, we're talking about human and environmental problems that stem from that. And that is a problem that is not an urban problem. The cities of the world generally have pretty good water. The Roman era kind of technologies that really prompted urban water supply have been very effective, but they're really ineffective when it comes to where the water problem is, which is a decentralized problem. And it's a problem of villages, it's a problem of farms, it's a problem of mountains, it's a problem of islands. And so the 2 billion people without safe drinking water at home are really located everywhere. And so our company Source really went about trying to approach that problem differently, really zoning in on the places where the current system wasn't working well. And there's really 2 parts to how we do that. One is the resource. So one of the constraints to current drinking water is you've got to find clean water and move it to people. And that source of water is becoming more and more stressed as we continually extract and consume more water than is replenished. So we look to the atmosphere where you've got this abundant supply of water that's in the troposphere that's truly accessible globally. And not only that, it's renewable. It's replenishing every 7 days from evaporation from oceans. So we set about a technology that could both access a new source of water and could also deal with the infrastructure challenges of decentralized populations. So how do you leapfrog that infrastructure challenge? You develop what we call a hydro panel that looks like a solar panel. It harnesses clean water from the air and delivers it right where you need it. So even in areas as dry as Arizona or the sub-Saharan Africa, down to 5% humidity, we can harvest water from the atmosphere and deliver it. So you've got that resource and infrastructure solution right where you need it. And our business now, proudly, and with the support of great shareholders like Lightsmith, have scaled now to more than 50 countries. We work with governments extending supply to communities, local governments, NGOs. We work with companies looking to reduce water trucking. We do a lot of work in mining and resources. We do a lot of work in hospitality, real estate developments, places trying to remove existing constraints in the form of plastic, and actually create a whole bunch of outcomes that are closing gaps between Indigenous and non-Indigenous populations, between female and male, between urban and rural, between developing and developed, and trying to make sure that all those populations have that foundational start of clean drinking water where they wake up every day. And we've seen that very possible with mobile telephones, with renewable energy. So the idea of adding decentralized solutions to a kind of hub and spoke network is very well proven from a technology and finance perspective. It is still evolving in water, so we're very happy to be collaborating within the water industry as we try to improve outcomes, and most importantly, build a system that is resilient to what we're seeing now in the adaptation of our climate. So we're seeing longer dry seasons, we're seeing less predictable rainfall, and we're seeing more and more competition for scarce resources between industry and communities, and unfortunately communities lose. So looking forward to jumping into it, but that's what we do at Source, and we're excited to be here.
Thank you, Rob. I want to turn now to Natalia Machado, who leads the global business development at Solimtech out of Brazil. And she graduated with a degree in advertising and communication and has had over 4 years of experience with Solimtech and in the agricultural market. In her current position, she's responsible for opening new markets in different countries, handles public affairs, and represents Solimtech at various events around the world. So Natalia, over to you.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you so much for having me and Solimtech here. Well, Solimtech is a Brazilian ag tech company focused on solving problems and having solutions so the farmers can be more efficient and more sustainable at the same time. So now we work with many types of crops, so sugarcane, row crops, perennials, even forestry, right? Providing solutions so we can kind of help them to control the entire process, right? But this would be just a tiny thing when I talk about the company. So since our foundation, we solve problems. So everything we do is a partnership with our customers. And in the beginning, so our core business is to install onboard computers on machines so we control, we can have information from them and from the process itself. And get information such as fuel consumption or idle time of the machine, and being able to reduce this fuel consumption and reduce this idle time, right, with the operators. So we could create a whole package of solutions to get even to traceability, logistics, or of course now with our newest asset, to AI to control all that. And a simple example of a product that we've had for a while now is it's one that goes in the harvesting front in the sugarcane industry. So it's a simple product that controls the flow of the harvester with the tractor. So the harvester never stops working, and there is always a tractor waiting for the harvester to get the product in it. So the flows never stop. In this way, we save time, we save fuel, and considering all this control that we have, we can even reduce the machines in the field. And with that, I mean, considering sugarcane fields, they have to be tilled each 4 or 5 years. And only with this solution, it helps to have more time with no tillage. So in this case, we have more time of carbon sequestration in the soil. So it's kind of a combo. We create layers, considering all the data that we have. We were able to create many layers of solutions, and all of them, they are always being perfected and resilient with the climate changes that are coming.
Thank you, Natalia. And I'm always struck with both Source and Salimtech how there's just this culture of continual innovation within the company. Now I want to turn we're very excited. Earlier this week, we announced our investment into Cadmus, and we'd love to hear more specifically, Ian, about the types of specific capacities that you bring to enhance resilience. So a bit about Ian. Ian Klein serves as Cadmus's president and CEO. Under his leadership, the firm has experienced significant growth, both organically and through acquisition, to diversify its capabilities, giving it a global presence. Ian first joined Cadmus in 1995 as an associate and was then named CEO in 2007. He has extensive background in performing regulatory and policy analyses for many public, private, and nonprofit organizations. And he's played a leading role in developing and implementing major public health and environmental protection programs at the national and state level. Ian?
Thank you. Is this working? Great. First off, I just want to say how delighted we are at Cadmus to be part of the Craft Fund. The team at Lightsmith, Sanjay, Jay, Tara, Brian, and their colleagues have been absolutely exceptional partners, and we are very early in the relationship. So I'm incredibly excited about what this could mean for our firm and more broadly with respect to the impact that we're capable of having. It's also incredibly gratifying to be sharing the stage with these two firms that are doing such incredibly innovative and impactful work. I have a deep personal interest in the work that both of you are doing. I started my career in water policy, drinking water specifically, dedicated the first 10 years of my career to drinking water supply and safe drinking water supplies in underserved areas. So I'm incredibly excited about what you're doing. And I grew up working on my grandfather's working farm. So it's absolutely delightful to hear the really impressive things that you are doing. Cadmus is an impact-focused consultancy with deep technical and strategic expertise in a variety of areas, including climate adaptation and resilience, climate mitigation and decarbonization, energy, of course, water and environment, sustainable transportation, all hazard preparedness, health, and international development. Now, as you hear that list, it becomes clear to all of you, just as it is to me, that each of those are part of a highly interconnected dynamic system. You cannot talk about climate, whether it's resilience or mitigation, without talking about health. You can't talk about climate without talking about the impacts of energy supply, energy transmission, energy distribution. Sustainable transportation is critical to the efforts we're making around mitigation and around resilience. The same is true of all hazard preparedness. As a result of this, as Tara alluded earlier, our strategy for the last 15 years has been one of both domain expertise diversification and capability diversification, looking to build both through organic internal professional development growth and through acquisition the broad range of expertise that we need to bring to bear to address all of these highly complex issues. So in addition to diversifying our domain expertise, we've also been very purpose-driven about bringing in the types of disciplines and capabilities that are required to also meet these needs. So I've got well over 1,000 colleagues in more than 25 countries around the globe who are economists, finance specialists, quantitative analysts, physical and life scientists, behavior change specialists, communication specialists, and engineers. Because it takes that full suite of capabilities You need to deploy that full suite of capabilities to actually have an impact on a policy and regulatory scale at all levels of government to truly address the needs that we see in climate adaptation and resilience. Our client set includes governments at all levels, utility clients, both electric and water utilities, and commercial clients who are looking at sustainability or who are looking at corporate resilience. So the scale of our projects can range from developing a corporate resilience plan that's a 3-month, several tens of thousands dollar engagement to 5-year multi-million-dollar engagements looking at policy and regulatory reform focused on climate resilience and adaptation or climate mitigation or any of the other areas that I mentioned. And again, I want to thank you for inviting us. It's a real pleasure to be a part of this.
That's great. So what I hope we can do next is to really dig in one layer down and hear some examples of concrete work that you've been doing in developing countries and how your relationship with Craft has helped to support that work and adaptation. And if we could hear a little bit more about the types of stakeholders, whether those are communities or individuals or customers who are benefiting from these solutions. So we'll keep to the same order. Rob?
Yeah, so I guess getting into more detail from my introduction, when we go looking for opportunities in the market that can use our hydro panel technology, we start off with where there's problems. So for us, I mentioned the infrastructure challenges in islands. The Pacific Islands happen to have the worst access levels per capita in the world of any region when it comes to accessing drinking water. So I think 5 of 11 million in the Pacific 5 of 11 million in the Pacific are without access to safe drinking water. The largest country in the Pacific is Papua New Guinea, a beautiful country which I've had the privilege of going to several times, and actually welcoming Iki and the team here today from the Ministry of Climate Change in Papua New Guinea. And so we sat down and we said we worked with the national departments, the Department of Climate Change, the Department of Education, and said, where's the problem? And unfortunately, the answer was the problem's everywhere. We've got a big capital city, and then we've got a very distributed village and island-based community that has real challenges. So we then partnered with 2 parts of government. One, the Ministry of Education. We installed hydro panels at a school that was previously delivering water on a boat. So they were relying on bottled water and shipped water, which not only was poor from a resilience standpoint, but it was really bad from an education standpoint. The school, 75% girls in Dalgo Island Primary School, and school shuts when there's no water. So regularly they were losing days of education and people were losing opportunities purely because they couldn't operate the school if they didn't have water. And so in the last 3 or 4 months, we've installed that project. It took about a month to install. We launched it with the community and the government last week in an event in Fisherman's Island. Actually, the next slide will show you a photo of that event, if we can pull up the next PowerPoint slide. Here is a community of people celebrating renewable drinking water at their school. We did another project at a village that tested a private sector model where that water is being sold. So this is a water farm funded by Craft. And probably most importantly, it's not a vanity project. It's not a project that just happens and nothing happens after it. It's actually a project that through Craft engaged all the right stakeholders required to scale. The day before this event, we signed an MOU, a scaling partnership with the Ministry of Education in Papua New Guinea that's targeting 750 schools that are identified that it will only receive water if it's through a technology like Source. And that's 240,000 students that are without water, the same problem as Dalgo Primary School, and actually is a very solvable problem if technology can link climate finance and community problems. They need a technology link. There needs to be a project developed, and the foundation of that project is happening with this Craft facility because we're doing the impact reports, we're doing the community engagement, we're doing the grievance mechanisms, and we're doing the work in partnership with the Ministry of Climate Change in PNG to actually educate and engage people necessary to scale. And not only that, we're doing the same thing in sub-Saharan Africa, the same thing in indigenous lands in Southwest United States, in all over Australia. And I'm drinking now water from source from hydro panels that is the same water that my kids drink in the morning. It is the same water that kids in Dargo Primary School drink. It's the same water that people in new sustainable cities in Saudi Arabia are drinking, and the same at primary schools in 50 countries around the world. So there's a sense of equity in water, which is, it also happens to be the cheapest way to deliver water in all those locations. It is far cheaper than water on a truck or water in a 5-gallon container. So if you're in a remote part of the world, facilities like Craft have been fundamental to applying our technology to problems and building partnerships that can scale and get a system that is not only as good as what you see in urban areas, but potentially better. We're actually innovating from the outside in, and really appreciate the work that Tara and Brian and Jay and Sanjay have done in driving that, because it takes real work. That's why my sleeves are rolled up, because we're not here to talk and look good. We're here to work.
So this example highlights our technical assistance facility that was launched earlier this year with support from the U.S. Department of State and the Nordic Development Fund. There's $17.5 million that allows us to, where we see opportunities to deepen the impact throughout their portfolio companies and further catalyze and accelerate that deployment of the technology into an area like Papua New Guinea or other vulnerable populations in developing countries, low-income countries, and vulnerable island nations. And so we're very excited to be able to do that with each of the portfolio company partners. So Natalia?
Incredible, really. Congratulations on the work. I brought a small video to talk about one of our newest products. I mean, of course, we've got our core business, as I mentioned, but I will talk a little bit about Solix, which is it on? Oh, yeah, there it is. It's our autonomous robot. So it's a 24/7 robot that runs in the field with solar panels and batteries. It can collect data from the field, plant by plant, do targeted application of inputs, so it can be herbicides, fungicides. And it also eliminates insects with no insecticide at all. Okay, well, it will run eventually, it's okay. Solix is for us kind of a revolution, because considering all the data we could collect just from the machines, having Solix collecting all of that 24/7, being the farmer's most reliable ally, it's been amazing, right? Especially because we reduced a lot the use of inputs and eliminated insecticides. So we basically, for the insecticide part, we use light waves and some shock, I would say, traps that they are around the robot to attract and eliminate the insects. Giving an example of what we have been doing, we are now globally positioned in the Americas mostly, but there is work being done in Brazil in tomato fields, especially with the hunter version, considering that the farmers in tomato, eventually they have to harvest earlier than they would like to because of the infestation. So with the work we have been doing, we were able to control the infestation and give those farmers 1 or 2 extra weeks to harvest. So this has been very nice. This is in Brazil. It's all right. I guess you could see, right? Okay, that's the idea. It's all right. With the sprayer asset, we worked with soy, also in a farmer in Brazil. And with the targeted application, we were able to reduce 93% of the herbicide. And I'm not even talking about the savings we have in water, which was 80%. So the work has been amazing. We get excited every time a new customer comes and brings the result. But they are the main, the most important people in here. And we are very happy to know that agriculture and food systems are being spotlight here at COP28, which is, I mean, very important for us. It's our business. And Lightsmith has been a key partner because we had the data, but we didn't know that we could do so much in the sustainability part. When Lightsmith came, we were able to actually see how powerful it is and the importance of this data for the company. So we wouldn't think of, okay, let's profit from that, you know, from food production. Profiting is part of the job, but we can bring so many more things in the sustainable area, even more now with the agronomic area with Solix. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's been a couple of exciting years, I must say.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. And while our initial interest and focus on Salimtech was on the resilience that it provides to farmers, there also have been such clear GHG emissions avoided as a result of the product. And so when we gather our impact results at the end of the year, I think that was a really impressive set of performance from all of the savings from fuel avoided. So Ian, I know that you touch on so many different sectors and aspects. If you could just share some examples with us to help us get a more concrete sense of some of the work that Cadmus is doing.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I will certainly do my best. First of all, I got to say, I'm becoming a total fanboy over here of the work that both of you are doing. I was looking over at Jay. I was aware of what you'd been doing, but hearing it directly from both of you has been tremendously exciting as somebody who's been deeply immersed in climate and energy and water for decades. To see the types of things that you all are doing, those projects, that's pretty freaking cool. I'm having a really good time up here. I am also a little bit jealous at how definitively cool their projects are and their products are, because it turns out professional services are a little bit more diffuse than that. But nonetheless, I'm here to at least try to convince you that there are a lot of exciting things going on in consulting and professional services as well. My colleagues and I are engaged in literally hundreds of projects right now around the globe that are focused on climate resilience and adaptation, on climate mitigation, on health, on water, on energy. All of them are having phenomenally exciting impacts. Probably the toughest thing for me when I saw the agenda for this panel was to decide on a project to talk about in this particular section. And Jay's putting up one because the last time Jay asked me to speak, he told me to choose 3 projects, and I did 7. So today, in that spirit, he's told me 1, so I'm going to do 2.
Okay.
But I'm going to be quick about both of them. And they are thematically linked because they're both happening in the Caribbean. But they show slightly different sides of the work that we are doing. The first project is the Jamaica Energy Resilience Alliance, where we are working in partnership with USAID and other private sector partners to develop energy resilience throughout Jamaica. And what we've done in this project is to focus on solar and solar plus storage project implementation with SMEs, focusing on the manufacturing, hotel, and food sectors. So providing both energy resilience and financial resilience, because it gives them the opportunity to continue to operate when power grids are down. It gives them the opportunity to have certainty about one of the inputs that's absolutely critical to their operations. How have we done that? We've done this in a couple of different ways. One, we have worked to identify and help to develop installers. This is a big barrier to entry in a lot of places when you're talking about the implementation of renewables. So we have worked to both identify and train a new cohort of installers in Jamaica who are capable of installing and implementing these projects. Secondly, we've helped these SMEs with feasibility studies, with developing their plans around financing, and with helping them to develop the communications, data, and information necessary to convince their decision makers, whether it's their executive teams or their boards, to invest in these solar or solar plus storage projects. Third, while it hasn't been needed for all of the SMEs, some of our partners also brought close to $4 million in capital into Jamaica to help fund some of these projects where it was necessary. So we were able to leverage private capital to help further the goals of this project. We were only able to do that because of the partnership with USAID and the money that they brought into the alliance as well. What have the outcomes been? Because we are a very outcome-driven organization. To date, we've helped 20 different SMEs finance close on 1.5 megawatts of energy. 1.5 megawatts of energy. There are 50 SMEs in the queue, so we have the opportunity to potentially more than double that. Some of these projects are already operational, many of them are still in development, but the project continues, and we're really excited about what we and the entire alliance are going to be able to accomplish in terms of impact with this project. The other one, and I'll be quicker on this one, is a program to drive resilience in 11 Eastern and Southern Caribbean countries. And we're doing two things there, really. We're helping to build into national disaster management plans comprehensive disaster management best practices. This is absolutely critical, along with, and I mean this very specifically, climate resilience planning. This is, in some respects, not new, in some respects, very new, particularly with respect to the multiple pathways that one can consider when you're thinking about climate resilience in an island nation setting, which is a place like you that we have focused because it's possible to have such phenomenal impact with very targeted interventions. One of the things we've done with PROS, that's the acronym for this project, is set up essentially a help desk that's focused on disaster management and climate resilience, where any of the 11 countries or businesses, and quite a few businesses have taken advantage of this help desk, can either come in for broad regulatory and policy reform support, or can come in with very specific business resilience needs. We're capable of helping them understand the resilience risks and develop the interventions necessary to make themselves more resilient. It's incredibly exciting to be part of a project, and again, this is a project where we're supporting USAID, where we're able to have an impact both on national disaster planning level and at the SME level with business preparedness and resilience. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ian. So I think we're coming up on time, but we still have another round of questions. And what I want to focus on going forward is the opportunity ahead. At its core, the Craft Fund really has the belief that there's a great opportunity in the resilience and adaptation solutions. And that's because the impacts of climate change are being felt now, and that our solutions, like we've seen today, already exist. And I think one thing this COP has highlighted is this opportunity and the increasing interest that the private sector has in engaging. And so we'd love to hear from where you sit, what you see as the opportunity and the future ahead. And knowing that there may be representatives here from the public sector, the private sector, civil society, if you have any call to action for the audience in terms of supporting your work and deploying these solutions. So Rob, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think the next step is scale, and I think the urgency of the situation is very, very clear at the moment. So I think one thing I would urge is that we recognise that the problems we're talking about are truly global in nature. I think the problems of climate change, the human problems, the environmental problems, the same types of problems are being seen all over the place. I think the solutions are very local. So I think it's good, and these TA funds and these demonstration and corporate investments is great because we're pushing out more information about the available technologies and the ways to solve problems. But to actually scale, you need to bring the local partners really need to drive it. And I want to use an example. We've had another one. Ben has come as well from the PNG team. So we now have 3 people from Papua New Guinea here today. Papua New Guinea Pavilion, for those of you who haven't been, is the other end of the blue zone. It is as far as humanly possible to get from here and stay in the blue zone. And that's an effort. And I think that's like representative of every little thing is an effort for a country in a remote place to engage, and it takes that effort, and every community has a school, and every school has a principal, and every principal has its teachers, and the education and burden of innovation requires like catalyzing those local partnerships. And I think to scale, we need the right mix of multilateral and third-party funding with private sector technology, private sector investment, and then local government funding and resources and passion. And so for us, we're doing a lot of work in the Pacific. We see the opportunity to use these projects we've done to be catalytic and actually get greater purchasing power by getting essentially scaled economics by working together between provinces, between islands, between countries, take bigger steps and lead innovation from the outside in, as I said. So I just want to, I think the pathway is there, but it's going to require all of the stakeholders to understand the complementary nature of the activities, and potentially that everyone has to be flexible to determine the best solution for a community. And for us, we're excited about that opportunity. We're excited about the support from Craft, and we think that the catalytic activities that are going on are going to lead to a multi-generational impact across communities all over the world. So we thank Lightsmith and AIB for that support, and we hope that the partners in the room can join us in the call to action.
Well, can you hear me? Okay. As problem solvers ourselves, we believe that the private sector is the one, we say that we have our boots on the ground, right? So we're out there helping the farmers to produce more food. So the main point here is to feed people, right? To feed the world, considering that by 2050, we're having 2 billion more people in the world to feed. So as a problem solver, that is the focus, to feed the world. And with that, we want way more. We would like to be able to help, especially with Solix, not only industries, but laboratories or researchers, to have stronger and resilient solutions themselves. So phenotyping is an example of what we are already able to do by studying the plant in such a deep way that we are able to help the industry to create seeds that are more robust and more sustainable, and we don't have to rely that much on chemicals, right? Considering the phenotyping and all this study. And we believe that the way of starting it, so the first place we would go after now, right, would be Africa, considering the huge amount of productive land they have, but they also have their problems, as we all have in our countries, right, when it comes to producing food. But I believe that would be a nice place to start, especially talking about Solix, but with all technology. But with that, as you have mentioned, scale is we call it a good problem because it's a challenge, actually. So to be able to do that, to have thousands and thousands of Solix around the world working properly, we would like to have a plug and play kind of pattern for Solix, so the farmer can take it out of the box and start working right away, right? Since it's his most valuable ally. So for that, to reaching this large scale, it is important for companies such as AIIB to actually do that, focus and invest on companies that can do that and provide these kind of solutions, so we can all together feed the world, which is the main point after all.
Thank you, Natalia.
I think one of the exciting aspects of what we've all seen over the past week has been, and we've known this for a while, but it becomes increasingly clear with every time the community is able to get together and discuss it. We have the technologies to address the fight against climate change, both from a resilience perspective and from a mitigation perspective. The technologies exist. The solutions are there. From a public sector perspective, I mean, what I would personally love to see is an acceleration around policy and regulatory reform. More aggressively addressing the soft costs associated with implementing some of these technologies, putting policy and regulatory schemes in place that facilitate the implementation, putting TA, technical assistance programs in place that allow people to implement faster and more effectively. From a public sector perspective, these are the steps that we can take together to dramatically accelerate the pace of change in this fight. From a private sector perspective, I mean, I'm delighted to see Lightsmith, AIIB lead the way in helping the private finance community understand that there are real solutions to invest in with real return, that a focus on a lack of bankable projects is the wrong way to be looking at the opportunities that exist in this market. There is private enterprise happening around the globe, innovation happening around the globe, expertise that exists around the globe for us to far more aggressively address these challenges today. And if we can reform regulatory and policy schemes, and if we can continue to accelerate the deployment of capital toward the innovation that exists today, I believe we can see absolutely game-changing acceleration of the impact that we're capable of having as a community. And I was remiss in my last answer of addressing Lightsmith's impact on us. We are a very new part of your portfolio, but I have to say, Lightsmith has been absolutely phenomenal as a partner beyond simply a source of capital. The expertise that they have has been tremendously valuable to us in addressing some of the very issues that I just outlined in terms of thinking about how to articulate that to our clients. And I'm deeply grateful for that as well. And I'm looking forward to a really fantastic partnership going forward.
Thank you, Ian. And I also want to say that we feel as though we're constantly learning from each of you in terms of innovative approaches and your expertise that you bring. So I think we have time for questions, if there are any from the audience. All right, hearing none, Sanjay, would you close us out?
Sure. So thank you all for joining us. I hope it has been interesting to hear about 3 great climate resilience solutions companies that are pretty representative of the investment opportunity for climate resilience globally. You'll see that there are companies with software, with physical technology-based products, with professional services. There are solutions addressing climate risk in agriculture, in water, in energy, transportation, and disaster response. Every sector, every country globally has companies that can offer solutions. And what we need to do next is to scale up the capital investment in climate resilience from hundreds of millions of dollars today from the private sector to hundreds of billions that the UN says will be needed in developing countries alone by 2030. The good news is that there are hundreds of companies like these with solutions that offer a strong business and investment case that can make very productive use of that capital and bring not just climate adaptation and build resilience, but also along with it, typically decarbonization, sustainability benefits, and solving critical problems of the government, corporate, and community customers. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you to our panelists from Salimtech, from Source Global, and Cadmus. It was great to hear about your companies. Thank you.